key in my car, breaking and entering, eating my sandwich. These are just some of the crazy things my ex did. So here's a story about the wildest person I've ever been with, named Angie. It was my third year at college and I was heading to the woods to smoke when I see a woman hysterically crying. I was like, hey girl, you look like you're having a rough go of it. You want to smoke some sticky icky? She hesitates at first and says, sure. So we begin walking to the woods, and all I could think about was how easy it'd be to kidnap her. She had no idea who I was, and now we're walking somewhere where no one would hear her scream. Talk about rookie mistake. But lucky for her, I had morals. And no rope. Anyway, she introduced herself. Hey, I'm Angie. Pleasure to meet you, Angie. I'm Steve Storms. You're lying. Nope, that's my real name. That's crazy, because I have a thunderstorm tattoo in the back of my neck. Here, push my hair aside and you'll see. So I stand behind her, palm her hair, and immediately get aroused. Johnson's like, whoa, we doing this right now? Relax, this is step one. What was that? Oh, I have a lovely tattoo. Anyway, we get to the woods, we're laughing, having a good time when I say, so what got you all hot and bothered? Well, I just broke up with my boyfriend. Johnson's like, game on. I said, oh, that's terrible to hear. All while barely making eye contact. She was wearing a low-cut shirt and it was cold outside. A little hard to make eye contact, you know? Plus, drugs were impacting my decision-making. Sober me is respectful me. High me is fun bags pretty. So after our smoke session, I spit some game and get her number. Now, I had planned on giving her some time to recover, as she just went through a rough breakup, but after a few days of texting, my Johnson's like, put it in! So I invite her back to my place for a movie. She agrees, and for the first 20 minutes, things are going well, until she brings up her RA. Talk about how hot he is, and how sometimes she sneak into his room and hide under his covers. Needless to say, this was a huge turnoff, and my Johnson was like a deflated balloon. Party over. So once the movie was done, I asked her to leave. The next day, she goes back to flirt texting me, but I wasn't having it. I'm like, girl, why are you writing this to me? Shouldn't you be sending this to your RA? She goes, no, it's not like that. We're just friends. I'm like, yeah, okay. Then my Johnson's like, psst, psst, remember those nips? I'm like, damn, Jim Dog, you make a compelling argument. Well, I guess I could give her another chance. So I invite her over again for another movie, but this time my roommates aren't leaving. They're like, we gave you the room the other day and you dropped the ball. I'm like, that's a valid point. Whatever. We'll just all watch it together. 10 minutes in and she starts texting me. This movie's boring. Wish we were doing something more interesting. Winky face. So after pondering for a moment, I said out loud, hey Ange, you want to go in my room? Sure. Then 2 quick high fives to my roommates later, and we're doing the dirty. And this chick was wild. Moaning, contorting her body, whispering in my ear, you're so big. It was magical. Afterwards, I'd even smoked cigarettes and somehow had one in my mouth. I'm like, damn girl, that was some good fucking. Anyway, Angie came over again a few days after, and a few days after that, then she started coming over every day. Best part was, she would leave afterwards. It was the dream. Working with no commitments, what more could a college student want? But what I neglected to realize was how lazy it'd make me. You see, when a guy's hunting for Kitty, he's on his A game. Freshly trimmed, looking sharp, and smelling like a burrito in a nightclub. But when Kitty's guaranteed, we get lazy. I'll give an example. Every Tuesday and Thursday I'd go to karate in the morning. Afterwards, I'd head back to my room where Angie'd be in my bed waiting for me. Now, normally I'd shower first, as I just sweat my balls off, but one day she presses me up against the door and starts me. I'm like, damn girl, if you don't care, I don't care. And this only made me get lazier. Because not only did I stop showering before baby making, but I stopped showering after. That stank just be following me around from class to class. Why does it smell like shit and shame in here? And because Poon was guaranteed, I stopped hunting for Kitty altogether. Why go to the bar and spoon feed White Claws into a chick when I already had one back in my room, ready to swallow whatever I gave her? None of that, hey, let's go dancing for 45 minutes as I dry hump you into thinking I'd be good in the bedroom. Bitch is already in my bed twerking. So this continued for the rest of the semester until we're about to head home for the summer. Angie texts me saying, come to my room. We need to talk. Now, normally I'd be freaking out, thinking she's about to say she's pregnant, but there's no way. Cause sure, we were talking on the regs, but she was so good at taking birth control. Every day at 4 p.m., no matter what was happening, she'd snap and say, pills. It's not even like she set alarms. She just had a baby-ending spider sense. Time to die, kid. So I went up to her room and she says, do you want a date? Because you'll be living off campus next year, and this won't be as simple as going down a flight of stairs to see one another. That's a good point. You know what? Let me think about it. So after a day of pondering, I was like, oh, hell no. Because even though we had great chemistry in the bedroom, the bitch never laughed at my jokes. I'd be killing in the school pool and she'd just be floating there motionless, like Matthew Perry's corpse. Start swimming, buddy. Anyway, I meet back up with Ange and let her down the best way I could. She seemed to take it all right, not realizing her brain was beginning to tweak. That summer, I'm on Facebook, posting on a bunch of hotties' walls, not realizing Ange was seeing this, bugging the fuck out. So much so, she would call up my friends hysterically crying. Friends be like, well, you aren't dating, so what's the problem? The problem being, Ange's feelings had tied up her logic, and no plans of setting them free. Fast forward to the beginning of fall semester, and my roommates and I are having a party. Things are going great until Ange comes over and starts cock-blocking the shit out of me. She wasn't even pretending. At one point, she sits down in the middle of a Kings game going, I want to play. We're kind of in the middle of, whatever, here's some cards. So I go back to macking on the chick next to me when Ange says, I have to go to the bathroom. Ladies, come with me. Keep in mind, she doesn't know any of the women there. So they all pile in the bathroom, and I'm looking at the guys going, this this isn't good. A few minutes later, they come out, and surprise, surprise, none of them want to play anymore. I'm like, Ange, what did you say to them? She goes, nothing. I'm like, all right, that's it, bitch. Get the out. She starts to cry, pretending she's the victim, but I could care less. I knew with her around, I was never getting laid, so I said, get out of here! A few days later, I'm walking to a bar when I see one of my friends across the street. I'm like, Adrian. He looks at me and keeps walking, but my drunk ass is like, well, maybe he didn't recognize me. So I run over and I'm like, hey, homie. Adrian was being real apprehensive, and I'm like, what's wrong, man? Did I say something horrible? If I did, I'm sorry. Nah, I thought you were angry at me. Why would I be angry at you? Well, Ange said, that bitch is crazy. But even though we hashed things out, I was still super pissed. Because if Ange is telling this guy I don't want to speak to him, then she's probably doing it to others. Now I'm missing out on connections and experiences because some bitch is lying about me? Oh, I was heated. So drunk me thought, what is the meanest thing I could do right now? I could call her some basic insult like punt or bore, but I'm crafty and I could do better than that. Then it hit me. You see, the last time we were and I thought, you know what, this doesn't feel that tight. So while I was doing her, I stuck in a finger, then 2 fingers, then I stuck my whole hand. Now granted, my hand was curled, but that's still a lot of digits to cram in a clam. And that's when I came up with the greatest nickname ever, Whole Hand Ange. It's the chef's kiss of insults. So I text Angie that her new nickname around campus is Whole Hand Ange. Needless to say, she did not take it very well and texts back literal death threats. It's really brightened up my day, you know? The next day I get a text from a number I don't recognize, and it turns out it's Ange's sister. She goes on this huge rant of, you have no idea who you're messing with, and I'll ruin your life for disrespecting my sister. Now, of course, I showed my homies, who all had a good laugh, and now we're spitballing ideas of things to write back when I say, hey, how about I respect your sister, I wash my hand before playing her like a puppet. Even my buddies are like, bro, that might be a little much. So I wrote it out and was about to send when I started to have second thoughts. Because normally my brain always picks the funny option, regardless of how much trouble it will get me in. 'Tis my how to your high school teacher video. But in this one moment, I thought, you know what? I probably should let this go. However, I didn't let anything else go. Over the next few weeks, I'd get DMs from guys on Facebook threatening to beat the shit out of me, and I'd always respond back with, you are adorable. Because I get they're trying to protect someone who's spoon-feeding them lies, but threatening someone on Facebook is like a 10 with herpes. Flashy at first glance, but ultimately worthless. It's also funny to me that Ange was telling people I'm harassing her, as she's encouraging people to harass me. Like, damn girl, you don't see any projection here? And even though she seemed hyper-fixated on me, I could care less about her. Because no matter how many times I never loved her. So I didn't have this emotional desire to get revenge. But I did enjoy seeing her. Because every time we'd bump into each other, she'd scream, I fucking hate you! And just think for a moment how much power that is. My mere presence is enough to ruin someone's day? It made me so happy. But this only added to Angie's insanity, and in December, I get a phone call from Campus PD telling me to come down to the station. Obviously, I'm really nervous, because 95% of the time when a girl says a guy's harassing her, she's right. But luckily, the cops were very reasonable.
A woman named Angie is claiming you're harassing her. Now, we've heard her side of the story. We'd like to hear yours.
So the first thing I told him is we used to have on the regs.
Wait a minute, you used to have a romantic relationship?
Yeah, why do you think all this is happening? The cop just rolls his eyes and says,
continue.
Then I showed him all the threatening texts and messages I got, and by the end of it, the officer was completely on my side. However, because police were called on a student, I also had to go speak to the director of student affairs. And this bitch was the polar opposite. Before I said anything, she just starts listing threats. Harassment to students will not be tolerated, and you could be expelled for After minutes of listening to this chick rant, I said, so you've only heard one side of a story and immediately came to a conclusion? I didn't realize an accusation was a conviction. Maybe you should take some of my criminal justice classes and see how gathering evidence is important when it comes to a potential crime. Needless to say, she was pissed, but I just sat there arms crossed like, I know you got nothing, bitch. Fast forward to Valentine's Day, and I'm dating this lovely girl named Rachel. We're both walking on campus holding hands when we bump into Angie, who goes ballistic, screaming, you, you piece of shit. My girl starts chewing her out, saying, he doesn't want your stinky cooter anymore, you flat-faced bitch. I'm laughing, dragging my girl away, saying, it's not worth it. Just ignore her. The next day, I get another call from campus police, so I go down to the station and speak to the same officer who says,
so we got more complaints of harassment?
Officer, I've done my best to avoid her, and in the time I've spoken to you, I've only bumped into her once on Valentine's Day when I was with my girlfriend. Officer was trying to remain professional, but I could tell he's like,
I can't believe I gotta deal with this nonsense.
A week later, I get a call from Ange saying, we need to talk. I'm thinking she's gonna try to bury the hatchet. Nope. Turns out her paranoia was at max, and she says, I know you keep stalking me, and if you don't stop, I'll be forced to take legal action. At first, I'm being real neutral, saying, Ange, I'm not stalking you or harassing you or quite frankly care what you do. But she is adamant, saying, you think I'm making this up? You think I'm crazy? No, I got f***ing witnesses. I said, listen, I'm not calling you crazy, but calling the cops on Valentine's Day when you see me holding hands hands with another girl is, a little cray-cray. Then she starts threatening my career at the time, saying, you know, if I file charges against you, you'll never be a cop. That's when my brain snapped to sarcasm mode. I'm like, damn girl, I didn't think 6.5 inches was enough to lose your mind over, and yet here we are. Now I know I'm a god at fucking, but you're gonna have to find a new prophet, okay? Whole hand Ange. And guys, to this day, I have never seen someone so angry. She couldn't even form words. She just sat there shaking, going, That's when I knew it was time to dip. About a month later, I get a call from my friend Nora, who just so happens to be Angie's roommate. Nora invites me over her place, and I'm like, is this a trap? She's like, no, Angie's gone for the weekend, so it's just me here. I'm like, oh, all right. So I go over, and we're hanging out for a bit, when she casually mentions, you know, I found your schedule at Angie's desk. I'm like, what? She goes, here, this is your schedule, right? And I'm looking at it going, holy shit. Angie broke into my place. Nora's like, what are you talking about? I said, because one day I came home and the kitchen window was open. I go to my roommate and I'm like, Jake, why did you open the kitchen window? You know, it's busted and super hard to close.
I didn't open it.
Bro, you're the only one here, and it's not like we got robbed because our laptops and TV are still here. But little did I know someone did break in because that same day my schedule was missing off my wall. That's when Nora says, also, I probably should have told you this sooner, but one day I caught Ange next to your car. Wait, what? I was heading over your place at night when I caught Ange bent over by your car. I asked what she was doing, but she just played dumb. I'm like, God damn it, because someone keyed my car. I just thought it was some drunk asshole, not some crazy bitch. Now, luckily, I didn't have any more interactions with Ange and thought it was all behind me. That wasn't until about a year later when I was working at Bed Bath & Beyond. I had recently threw up my lower back and was super depressed, just unloading boxes, when I get a phone call from my old roommate, Jake. Jake is like, hey, Steve, listen, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I just thought you should know, Ange is pregnant. Whoa, what? Yeah, and actually I was wondering, do you think it's yours? What? No, we haven't smashed in like 2 years. Oh, okay. I was getting worried for a second. But Jake, you know what this means, right?
That you won't be a father?
Well, of course that, but it means she trapped someone.
What?
She trapped someone, Jake. She was so distraught over the fact I could just with her for over a year and have no feelings that she found a way to make someone stay forever.
What if she just forgot to take birth control?
She never forgets to take birth control, Jake! Besides, it's still effective even if you forget to take it for a few days. She trapped someone, and it could have been me, Jake. This crazy bitch could have ruined my life, but instead I gotta live and see a sunrise one more time.
Glad I can make your day, Steve. Now go live, buddy.
I will, Jake. Did this bitch just send me a friend request? Families are overrated. They are. You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. So why are you supposed to love them unconditionally? Because you share some DNA? There's more of my DNA in a streetwalker than my cousin. Yet, I'm not inviting him to the wedding. So stop with this family comes first nonsense. Because what if they're horrible people? What if your dad is abusive? Or sister steals money? Or brother watches Paw Patrol with his pants off? Oh, Billy! I told you to knock! Face it, we all have terrible family members. And my family thinks that person is me. So here's a story on how I ruined Thanksgiving. Every year, my family would get together at my uncle's house for Thanksgiving. Typically, I'd spend most of the time in the basement showing my cousins the terrible videos I found on the internet. This one's called One Guy, One Jar. Oh God! Oh God, what? But this year, I was feeling extra frisky. You see, my brain was starting to develop into the entertainer you see here today. And I thought it'd be funny to act like a sassy queen. So I'm just prancing around, telling everyone how fabulous they look, not realizing my uncle was getting furious. Eventually, my fairy energy turned his way, and I said, Uncle John, your arms got so big. How did you find a t-shirt to fit those cannons? My uncle, already fuming, explodes in anger and starts screaming at me. Stop acting like a homo and be a man! And this wave of shame enveloped me. I didn't even know what I did wrong or why he was angry, but being a dumb kid, I internalized it and blamed myself. Needless to say, this ruined my evening. I spent most of it turtled up, not talking to anyone. Over the course of the next year, I think about it every once in a while, and eventually my brain developed enough to piece together what actually happened. I'm like, wait, he yelled at me because he's homophobic? A child. He yelled at a child in front of everyone because he doesn't like gay people? Then, a switch flipped in my brain. I'm like, oh, if he didn't like me last year, wait till he sees me this year. So I gathered up all my money and went to the mall for a makeover. Got me some pink sneakers, bracelets, and the tightest pants my pasty ass could fit into. As I'm leaving, I passed by a store with a poster outside of it that said, "Get your ears pierced here." I'm like, am I willing to mutilate myself for a joke? Yes. Yes, I am. So I got my ears pierced, and with my last $5, bought the most effeminate pair of earrings I could find. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, and as soon as I get into my mom's car, she's like, what are you wearing? I'm like, what? I'm just trying to look good. She's like, your uncle is gonna flip out. Go change. I'm like, hey, if he doesn't like it, that's on him. My body, my choice. Mom's like, ugh, whatever. Just drives to my uncle's place. As soon as we arrive, I'm gonna be honest, I was getting pretty nervous. But I'd already come this far. Time to queer up or shut up. So I walk inside and begin to do the rounds. I'm like, hey, Aunt Becky, look at your hair. It looks fantastic. fantastic. Oh, bangs were such a good choice. And Billy, oh my God, look at you, you little beefcake. Eventually, I came across my uncle who has the most disgusted look on his face. Before I could even say anything, he just shakes his head and walks away. And my smile could not be bigger. I spent the next few hours chilling with my cousins, never breaking character. Eventually, they call for dinner and I skip my way over to the table. While waiting for the turkey to be brought out, I'm gonna be honest, I was getting a little sad. I was expecting to get a big reaction out of my uncle, but for the most part, he ignored me. I'm like, damn, I only got a little time left. How am I gonna get him to notice? Oh, I know what to do. So as soon as my uncle begins to cut the turkey, I walk up to him and say, thanks for inviting us over, Uncle John. Then I gave him a little on the cheek. Immediately, he flips out. Get the fuck away from me, you little ho! All while waving around the knife. I'm just pretending to be confused, like, what seems to be the problem, John? And he's screaming, You little Family is trying to calm him down, but he can't be contained. My mom, being the ultimate homie, says, John, you're ruining Thanksgiving. I think you should leave. Me? It's my fucking house! You get the fuck out! Then I turn to everyone and say, geez, what's got his panties in a bunch? Which makes my uncle turn the knife towards me. I'm not even scared. I'm like, go ahead and stab me in front of everyone, you little bitch. My aunt, freaking out, goes to stop him, but trips over a chair and does that old person whimper. Now it's pure chaos. Kids are crying, my aunt is moaning, uncle is waving the knife, refusing to put it down. That's when my eyes link up with my mom, who gives me a let's get the hell out of here look. So my parent and I book it out of the house and see a bunch of family members follow suit. As we were leaving, my eyes lock with my uncle's through the window as I give him a little goodbye smooch. Now surprisingly, that was the last time I was invited to Thanksgiving. And looking back on it, would I do it again? Yes, of course I would. Matter of fact, if your anti-Semitic brother is getting married and you need a date to the wedding, I'm your man. Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but where can I put this foreskin? Drinking and driving, getting your RA pregnant, watching hentai with the door unlocked, there are plenty of ways to ruin your life in college. So here's a story about the biggest screw-up I've ever met, named Jimmy. Jimmy was basically Steve-O without all the fame and money. He was the ultimate attention-seeking who would do anything in front of a crowd. He climbed fire escapes, punched himself in the balls, got suplexed on beer pong tables, anything to get a reaction out of the people. And right before a stunt, he would always yell, to the moon! Not sure why, but with Jimmy I learned not to ask questions and just accept the craziness. Anyway, one day I'm hanging out with Jimmy and a few peeps and I start rolling some weed. I made a little line with a credit card and I'm about to put in the blunt when Jimmy says, how much would you pay me if I snorted that? And my eyes lit up. I'm like, for the whole line? I'll buy you a bottle of Jack Daniels. The problem was I was too excited and Jimmy started to have second thoughts. But I knew Jimmy didn't care about the bottle. He just wanted the attention. So I start chanting, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. And now we're all chanting, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. I see Jimmy crack a little bit of a smile and he says, to the moon. Then he puts one hand on the side of his nose, bends over and takes a huge rip. Immediately, Jimmy was f***ed up. He's just moaning, and I'm dying. Jimmy keeps trying to blow it out, but he put dry plant matter in a wet nasal cavity. It ain't coming out. So he walks into the bathroom, puts his wallet and phone on the counter, and steps right into the shower. Fully clothed, he's just moaning into the shower head. And I don't know who's crying more, Jimmy from pain or me from laughter. Another time I'm hanging out in the dorm with some peeps when Jimmy comes barreling in. He's like, guys, have you ever tried a gravity bong before? We're like, no. He's like, well, I'm about to blow your mind. I need a 2-liter bottle and a bucket full of water. I'm like, what do you need a bucket for? He's like, no time. Fill up a bucket and find me a 2-liter. So I get some water, but the only 2-liter we had was an unopened bottle of soda. He's like, you gotta empty this first. I'm like, dude, I'm not just gonna pour out a full 2-liter. He's like, fine, and starts chugging it, stopping periodically to burp and moan. He gets through about 90% of it, and I could tell he's in pure agony. So I just pour out the rest. He's like, okay, we're almost there. So he cuts off the bottom of the bottle, burns a hole in the cap, and stuffs it with a bowl. I'm looking at this contraption, having no faith it would work, but as soon as Jimmy lit the bowl, I was mesmerized. Smoke begins to fill the bottle as Jimmy looks at us and says, to the moon. Then he takes off the cap, inhales, and blows smoke all around the room. Now our dorm is covered in a thick fog, and everyone begins to panic. Jimmy's coughing uncontrollably, and I'm like, guys, what are we gonna do? Hearing all the commotion, the RA comes and knocks on our door. Jimmy, with limited lung capacity, is like, oh tits, I can't get caught. I'm still on probation. So he opens a window, and I'm thinking he's trying to aerate out the place. Nope. He just starts punching the screen till there's enough space to fit through and jumps out. He crashes a story below into a bush and starts wailing. Roommate lets the RA in, who immediately walks to the window to see where all the screaming's coming from. While he was distracted, I sneak out, and as I'm exiting the building, I still remember hearing Jamie's wails in the distance. Somehow, Jimmy doesn't get expelled for this, and a week later, I bump into him in the cafeteria. He's got a walking boot on, and before I could even ask about his injuries, he says, hey, do you still have that 2-liter? I'm like, the one we cut in half? Yep, I think so. He's like, good, bring it over my place tonight at 8. So I go over Jimmy's place later that evening, thinking he was just gonna make another gravity bong, but it turns out he had grander plans. First, Jimmy takes the 2-liter and starts stuffing the opening with cigarettes. I'm talking like 40 cigarettes. Then he places it on a table next to a beer can, a bowl, and a little line of Coke. I'm like, Jimmy, this might be a little much, even for you. too. He's like, don't worry, bro. I'll be fine. I'm like, dude, mixing beer, weed, coke, and cigarettes seems like a really bad idea.
He's like, don't forget about peyote.
I'm like, peyote?
He's like, yeah, I put peyote in one of the cigarettes.
You mean the shit that makes you see spirit animals?
He's like, yeah, I'm looking to get twisted.
I'm like, dude, seriously think about what you're doing for a sec. But before he could respond, people start chanting, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. Jimmy, with a huge smile on his face, yells, to the moon! Then he snorts the coke, takes a hit from the bowl, shotguns the beer, and starts lighting the cigarettes. He gets maybe 2 puffs in before dropping it, coughing violently. Everyone's cheering, and I'm thinking disaster averted. That was until Jimmy started talking in tongues. He's just like... At first we thought he was kidding, but it became clear he was actually losing his mind. I walk over to him to see if he was alright, but he just pushes me aside and bolts out the house. With his walking boots still on, he runs into the street yelling nonsense. People at the party are freaking out, yelling, Jimmy, Jimmy, what are you doing? Eventually a car comes and Jimmy jumps up on the hood. The driver panics and floors it in reverse, causing Jimmy to fall back first onto the concrete. That's when I was like, fuck this, and called 911. Paramedics come, and as they're taking Jimmy away, I'll never forget what he said to me. So whatever happened to Jimmy? Well, I have good news. He ended up turning his life around and is now a guidance counselor. I'm kidding. He's dead. But some people need a happy ending, you know? He's okay? Oh, thank goodness. You know me, not being able to deal with reality. The funny part was he made a full recovery from this incident and ended up dying from a drunk driver hitting him. Yeah. Talk about irony. But I guess when your entire life is a car crash, it isn't too surprising. Anyway, the lesson you should take from this video is doing reckless things for attention is a recipe for disaster. So if you're struggling with destructive tendencies, it's important to seek help. But if you're gonna do it anyway, then at least have it on film. To the moon, buddy. Cute girls were the only thing on my mind as a teenager. I tried to focus on school, but once puberty hit, it was game over for my rational thoughts. The only physics I cared about were the bouncing of Stacy's fun bags. So during my senior year of high school, I was determined to get some. I didn't even care what it was. First base, second base, chest bump in the dugout, anything was better than nothing. But walking up to girls and raw dogging a convo was scary. Every time I was about to, my brain would just turn into a pothead seeing a cop like, what are you doing? Bail! Bail! Plus, I wasn't born with godlike genetics. I was just a typical 6.5-inch scrawny, pasty white boy. So I knew if I wanted a shot with any number above a 5, I'd have to improve my appearance. So I switched out my glasses for contacts, started working out, and wore enough Axe body spray to kill most small animals. The only thing I refused to compromise on was my khakis. Super comfy and 6 pockets, they're the perfect pants. Yeah, I get women are disgusted by them, but maybe if they got to know me, they'd see I'm really a genie. I could go for some McDonald's right now. Your wish is my command. My next step was to draw attention to myself. I'm like, I'll just get highlights in my hair and I'll try out for the school play. And to my surprise, it worked, but for the wrong gender. Guys started hitting on me, which was flattering, but so annoying, because most of them didn't take no for an answer. One time a dude spit game at me and I immediately shut it down. I said, hey man, I'm flattered, but I don't play for your team. And he says, well, have you ever tried it? I'm like, dude, that's not something you just try. I'm never home alone looking at my TV remote like, then walking to school the next day like a happy ballerina. Anyway, clearly my strats weren't working, but is a strong motivator, so I wasn't giving up. My next best shot was during our senior class trip to Disney. That's right, for my senior class trip, we went to Disney World. Can you tell I went to an all-white high school? Who needs diversity when you have Space Mountain? They're both dark, make you scream, and end up taking your wallet, but I'd pay to go back to space. Does that joke make sense? Not really, but sounds offensive, and that's kind of what I'm going for. Anyway, the trip was 3 days, and on day 1, my friend Kristen was sending me hard vibes. At first, I thought she was just being friendly, but it became clear she was digging me. Now, prior to this, I just viewed her as a friend, meaning I didn't find her banging. Don't get me wrong, she was cute, but if she was 9 or 10, floaties or not, I'd be diving headfirst into that poon. So I kind of just pretended I didn't know what she was doing, but she began to get more direct. That evening, we were riding the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and she starts rubbing my leg. My Johnson screaming, let me out of here! I'm like, Jesus, am I about to get a handy at Disney? This pirate ride is about to be rated R. Oh God, I'm so tired. Well, luckily things didn't escalate because apparently there's a bunch of night vision cameras all around the ride. Could you imagine the ride shuts down, lights turn on as an overhead announcement says, ma'am, please remove your hand from his peg leg. Fast forward to later that evening and I'm back in the hotel room chilling with homies. They're like, bro, you trying to smash? I'm like, I don't know. I love Kristen as a friend, but I don't know if I feel the same way. Then my buddy Sean is like, why don't you just be friends with benefits? Which at the time seemed like a great idea, not realizing friends with benefits never works. One or both people end up developing feelings and your relationship will eventually crumble faster than Jonathan Major's career. But being a dumb kid, I'm like, I can make it work. Generations of men have tried and failed, but my 17-year-old brain had it all figured out. So the next day I meet up with Kristen and immediately felt conflicted because part of me was like, I really don't want to ruin our friendship. and the other part of me wanted to get my beak wet. My balls were dry for 17 years, and I just wanted some dome. You could argue I didn't know what I was missing, but I heard good things. The reviews for blowies are in, and it's overwhelmingly positive. So like an absolute bitch, I just kept changing my mind, constantly going from hot to cold, until later that evening when we were standing in line for the teacups. I don't know what it was, but when I looked at Kristen, I just thought, hey, why not? She's cute, funny, has a nice pair of fun bags. I think we'd have a great time together. Friends with benefits would be cool, but you know what? I think dating sounds even better. That's when my brain activated cringe mode. Because instead of just asking her out or leaning in for a kiss, I said, oh, Kristen, I forgot. I got you a gift. And it's in my mouth. Then painfully walked forward to kiss her. Not lean in. No, I was at least 3 steps away, letting the cringe really set in before locking lips with her. And since I never kissed before, I had no idea what I was doing. I just started throwing my tongue around like a quadriplegic trying to breakdance. Also, keep in mind, we're still standing in line for the teacups. So after a few seconds of tonsil hockey, a disgusted mother taps me on the shoulder telling me the line is moving. And this happened multiple times. Each time she just looked more and more appalled. But I didn't care. To go from never kissing to kissing was incredible. It's like my happiness quotient turned to a new level of Super Saiyan. Like I didn't know there was a level beyond. Unfortunately, my dumb male brain decided to ruin the moment. You see, guys are compelled to do certain things. We all clean dirty toilets with our pee, we all smell our hand after scratching our balls, and we all go top speed on the teacups. So once we got in the ride, my homies and I are just spinning the heck out of it, not thinking of any possible consequences. Once it was over, we all felt crazy nauseous. Luckily, everyone was able to hold it down. Well, everyone except for Kristen, who decided to paint the sidewalk with her dinner time turkey. That probably killed the mood, right? Nope. Horned up me went right back to making out 30 minutes later. I could still taste that gravy. Eventually, I was able to ride her splash mountain, but unfortunately, there was a lot of dead fish in a river, if you catch my drift. So whatever happened between me and Kristen, well, I ended up breaking up with her 6 months later. Now, all breakups are tough, but it went as well as you could hope. Because I left her for someone hotter who had a lot less seafood on her menu. Karens. Most of us have dealt with a Karen at one point in our lives, screaming at us, asking to speak to a manager. But what's the best way to deal with a Karen? Well, let me tell you a story on how I got the ultimate revenge on a raging Karen. It happened while on a Carnival cruise ship. I'm chilling in a hot tub with one other adult and 3 children. The kids start splashing one another, and at first I'm sipping my pina colada like, they're just having fun. Then they kept splashing, and I'm like, all right, this. So I say, children, stop. At first they did, but kids had the attention span of a gerbil on Skittles, so I just went back to splashing. That's when I cut my hands and pushed as much water as I could into one of the kids' faces. He starts crying because he's a little bitch, or because I pushed a gallon of chlorine in his eyes. Either way, he starts screaming, and his mom, who apparently is the other adult in the hot tub, says, "Did you just hit my child?" I said, "No, ma'am. The water hit your child." She starts cursing me out, saying, "Do you know who I am? I can get you thrown off this boat." Now, under most circumstances, I would try to de-escalate this situation, but I'm on vacation, and I don't give a so I proceed to viciously make fun of this woman. "Ma'am, I was under the impression that fat people had big tits. What happened? Did God punish you with both ugly kids and the body of a manatee? And how are you gonna get me thrown off this boat? Bribe the captain with a hand from your sausage fingers?" Needless to say, she didn't take it very well and gets out of the hot tub screaming for a manager. Fortunately, I'm an expert in talking to staff. So a crew member comes over and says what seems to be the problem. The wild Karen starts going off on how I hit her kid and she wants me thrown off the boat. Staff member then asks me, "What happened?" I said, "I am very sorry you have to deal with this today. You see, I was relaxing in the hot tub when this woman's kids kept splashing me and I asked them to stop." The wild Karen says, "That's not what happened. He's lying." And I said, "Sir, this woman is quite hysterical. I can leave if that works best for you." The Karen screams, "No, I want him thrown off this boat." That's when I turned to her kid and said, "You got water in your eyes, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's why you're crying, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "See, they were splashing water, some got into his eyes, and their mother got very upset." Karen starts yelling, "You're a piece of shit. I'm gonna get you thrown off this boat." She's screaming even louder now, and I'm just sitting there smirking, drinking my pina colada. Eventually more staff come and escort her off the pool deck, and I was like, what a great way to start my vacation. But the Karen wasn't finished. You see, a normal person would take the L, walk away, then proceed to enjoy the rest of their vacation. But not a Karen. No. A Karen will ruin their own lives just to try to hurt somebody else's. So this all happened day 1 of the cruise, and there were 4 days left. Now the ship was quite large. It had a passenger capacity of 3,600, so you don't bump into people often. But I did see the Karen 2 more times. The first time was at the casino. Now I'm not a gambler, unless you count spoon-feeding drinks into a girl with daddy issues, but I'm with my friends that are playing blackjack. That's when the wild Karen passes by with her kids. At first she doesn't recognize me, but a few seconds later she says, "You're the one that hit my kids." And I can't tell you how excited that made me. You see, I have this superpower where I can make anyone absolutely furious. I try not to use this power, but like the Hulk getting angry, angry, sometimes I lose control. So I say to her, "Is that you, fatty? Oh, I didn't recognize you without your sunglasses covering that walrus of a face." She immediately starts screaming, "How dare you, you piece of shit! You have any idea who I am? Security!" By this point, everyone in a 20-foot radius has stopped and is just looking at us, which only makes me happier because I knew they'd have a good story to tell after this. So security comes, and again, they're trying to calm her down. But this time, I took a little initiative. I tapped one of the security officers, and right in front of the Karen said, "Hey, I'm really sorry you have to deal with this, but this woman appears to be quite inebriated and keeps making threats towards me." The Karen says, fuck you, you little piece of shit." Then security grabbed her arm, and I'm not gonna lie, I got aroused. She starts screaming, "Get your hands off me! It's not me! It's him!" Security then escorts her out of the casino as I'm looking at my buddy saying, "Bet you didn't think you'd be this lucky today." The last time I bumped into the Karen was day 4 of the cruise, and it was... oh, perfect. They had an adult game show where it was guys versus girls. So I'm on stage with 4 other guys and 5 girls. We're doing silly games like jump through hula hoop and playing leapfrog, but the last game was dirty dancing, where the team with the dirtiest dance wins. So the girls go first, and their shit was wild. They go off into the crowd, showing off their best stripper moves, and that's when I noticed the Karen in the audience. So when it was the guy's turn, I take off my shirt, go up to the Karen, and start grinding in front of her. And I have never seen someone with such rage in their eyes. She's yelling, but the music and the crowd are so loud, no one is paying attention. And I'm just laughing, slowly caressing my nipples, giving her a I won look. I go back to the stage with the other guys, and I can hear the Karen in the crowd huffing and puffing. At first, everyone thinks it's from excitement, but then she stands up and starts screaming. The MC, who was having none of it, gets on the mic and says, "Someone remove that drunk bitch." Security comes, and as they're forcing her to leave, I start to slow clap, which causes the audience to start applauding. And as I'm watching her get dragged away as the audience cheers, I start to get a little teary because I had never seen something so beautiful. Anyway, that's my favorite experience with a Karen. Have you guys had any experiences with a wild Karen? Please let me know down in the comments. And just remember, as long as you stay calm, a Karen will be angry. What is the perfect way to get revenge? Is it putting birdseed on their car, jizzing in their shampoo bottle, slowly poisoning their lemonade with Drano? How do you know the best way to get back at someone? Well, here's a story on how I got the perfect revenge. My story begins with the culmination of pure joy, a dog. When I was 17, I had this dog named Shelby, and she was the greatest. Every day I'd come home, she'd shower me with love. No matter how bad my day was, it was hard not to crack a smile as she laid in my arms for belly rubs. But Shelby technically wasn't my dog. She was my sister's dog. However, after the first month of rescuing her, my sister just left her with me and my mom. For 3 years, my mom and I lived with this bundle of joy until one day Shelby had a cut in the side of her neck. I was thinking it was one of the neighbor's kids as my maternal instincts kicked in, like, if they hurt you, I will murder them. So my mom and I take the dog to the vet, and they inform us that Shelby needs surgery. And this is where we f***ed up. Instead of just paying for the surgery, my mom decides to call my sister, who comes and picks up the dog. 5 days go by, and we haven't heard any news. Mom and I are freaking out. Call my sister, who isn't responding. Desperate, we start calling every vet in the area, and that's where we were able to piece together what happened. Turns out my sister took the dog to the vet, who informed her the surgery bill would be $2,000. Sister didn't want to pay for that, so she brought her back to the same vet, crying, saying the dog wasn't hers. Because apparently there's some law saying if a random dog needs surgery, they have to perform it, with a caveat being you obviously can't keep the dog afterwards. So instead of my sister recommending the dog go to me and my mom, she decides to give it to a friend in Pennsylvania. My parent and I were furious, leaving messages of how dare you give Shelby away without consulting us. You abandoned her for 3 years. You don't have the right to determine what's best for her. But my sister never responded. Fast forward 5 years later, my sister's getting married. Mom tells me I'm invited, and I'm like, why the hell did she invite me? Mom's like, because I paid for half the wedding, so she has to invite you. I didn't want to go, but I also wasn't going to abandon my mom, so I was like, all right, whatever, I'll go. Mom's like, good, now you just got to get her a gift. I'm like, she took Shelby away. I'm not getting her dick. Mom was like, if you don't get her something, I'm putting $50 in an envelope and saying it was from you. I'm like, all right, I'll get her something. Jesus. So I searched around my house for some crap to throw in a box when I came across my dog's old chew toys. Most were torn apart, except for one stuffed toy that was a little devil, where if you squeezed it, it'd say, "The devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. Ah, ah, ah." I'm like, perfect. So I put it in a shoebox, wrote the name Shelby above it, and wrapped it in Jewish wrapping paper. Why Jewish? Because that's what I had laying around my house, and there was a 0% chance I was going to spend any money on this gift. So I go to the wedding, put the gift with the other presents, dance with my mom for a few hours, and then head back home. The next day, I have a threatening voicemail from my father, who I haven't talked to in years. I'm like, what the hell is this about? So I call him up, and he proceeds to curse me out, saying I should be lucky he didn't tell people where I lived. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, the hate crime you committed at the wedding. I'm like, whoa, hate crime? He's like, his family is Jewish. You knew what you were doing with that present. And then it all hit me. You see, what happened was my sister decided to open up gifts at the wedding, which is wild because you're basically just throwing shade at different people. Oh, a toaster, Jerry? That's nice. And Becky got us a $200 gift card to Target, but a shitty toaster's just as good. So when she opened up my gift, the entire groom side of the family somehow took a stuffed devil doll in Jewish wrapping paper as a hate crime. Ignoring how dumb you must be to make that correlation, this entire situation could have been mitigated by my sister. Because not only was she the one that bought the toy, it very clearly said my dog's name right above it. So she could have just brushed it off saying, oh, it's my brother being a dick, and then just gone back to her wedding. But instead, she let them believe it was a hate crime, because that's how my sister operates. She'd rather let people believe a lie if she can be the victim, even at the cost of the happiest day of her life. So my sister took my dog away, but I ruined her wedding, so I think it balances out. Anyway, that's my story on how I got the perfect revenge. If you guys have any good revenge stories, please let me know down in the comments. And just remember, if someone pisses you off, don't get mad. Get even. Guy brains are very simple. All we want is food, kitty, and high fives. But where can you find a pet store without a height requirement? Amsterdam! That's right, buying kitty is legal in Amsterdam. Oh, more coming soon. Their stores are open for business. Hell, they're literally advertising in the window. But before we get to my greatest purchase of all time, let me tell you about my trip to the Netherlands. First, I flew to the UK, then took a 4-night cruise to Iju. Now, originally I was supposed to go straight to Amsterdam, but my ship got rerouted after environmental protesters chained themselves to the port, which, to be honest, I kind of respect. Imagine doing something that inconveniences 4,000 people at once. That's a true hater right there. So instead of docking in Amsterdam, we docked in Iju, and surprise, surprise, we're greeted by protesters. They had the classic big sign, feminine bicycles, crippled, unshaven woman with a megaphone, everything you could want from self-righteous betas. Now, they were there to protest cruise ships, saying they were terrible for the environment, in which they're totally right. Those stacks aren't for breezing the ocean, they're chloroforming Earth. So I agree with their message, but disagree with their approach. Like what seems like a better strat, kidnapping the CEO of Exxon or shaming tourists. Deb just wants to play shuffleboard and get truffed up in Amsterdam, okay? She's had a tough life. Let her have this. But luckily, the protesters weren't able to block us from entering Ajuville. Actually, all they really did was make it so we now had to take a 45-minute bus ride to Amsterdam, which is kinda an extra FU to them when you think about it. Oh, were you trying to prevent harmful CO2 emissions? Well, congrats on creating more! Anyway, I hopped on the bus and was so excited, because I'd never been to the Netherlands before, and a 45-minute journey across the countryside gave me a chance to do what every American loves most, judge other countries. I already knew we're better, but now I get to see why. First major downgrade is most people rode bicycles. And not because they were convicted of drinking and driving like in the US. No, they chose to ride bikes. Bikes! The only thing gayer than a fanny pack. The only time it's socially acceptable to ride a bike is if you're under 12 and escaping Diddy's house. Can't stop. Won't stop. Second major downgrade is I didn't see one homeless person. Now, compared to America, that might seem like an upgrade, but believe me, it's not. Sure, they don't have to step over human suffering to enter a Starbucks, but having clean streets feels too sanitized, you know? Like going to Disneyland without all the darkies. Yeah, I get it's safer, but talk about boring. I mean, what's a city without a crackhead baptizing a pigeon? The demon's taking hold! Face it, the homeless add character to a community, and I'd rather laugh at despair than be fair. The smell of herb and lack of bras can only mean one thing. I've officially arrived in Amsterdam. Here, ganja, truffles, and kitty are all legal to buy. That's right, you could pay to get so high that you forget you're her 8th customer this evening. First come, best served is her motto. Seriously, could you imagine showing up early only to be the 2nd customer in line? Enjoy my sloppy seconds. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me tell you how trashy the city was. Starting out with the canals, which look great on postcards, but up close are more like junkyards. Filled with rusted bikes, broken beer bottles, and I'm assuming all the homeless. The worst part was the smell. Oh, like a mixture of expired bong water and wet dog. Now, growing up in New York, I'm used to the Hep C factory there's the Hudson River, but at least we have guardrails. In Amsterdam, there's nothing. No barriers, no rope, no bed to respawn, just your homie yelling, "You said you wanted to get wet." Speaking of accidents waiting to happen, they're buildings. Every one of them is either tilted, off-center, or leaning like it's gonna tell you a secret. That secret being, run. Yeah, turns out building a city on marshland wasn't the best idea. But Amsterdam isn't known for its good decisions. No, it's known for its debauchery. The kind of excess that would make Vegas blush. Blunts that warp reality. Truffles that turn you trans. Plastic dopamine one credit card swipe away. Ooh, baby! We're getting to the juice now! Because I had officially arrived in the hottest part of Amsterdam, the red light district. The most popular part being this tight hole right here. That hole was packed! The streets clearly weren't designed for thousands of tourists. And you heard that correctly. You walk on streets, not sidewalks. Every once in a while you get grazed by a moped. Tits! tits? That's right, fun bags in a street window, waving, "Come on in, big fella." I almost cried, seeing all those angels do the Lord's work. Here, let me take the demon out of you. Now, prior to arriving, I had two misconceptions. One is I thought it'd be Nip City, but every girl had clothes on, which makes sense because men are monsters. Hard to entice customers when Billy keeps standing outside the window playing pocket pool. Also, when you think about it, covered is better. It adds to the anticipation. Does she have stretch marks, a C-section scar, areolas that look like IHOP pancakes?
I need to know!
I need to know! My second misconception was I thought they'd all be uggos. Bro, every girl was 10, 10, 10. Even the alleyways were filled with dime pieces. Well, all except one I dubbed Busted Central. If you like botched lip filler, fur-lined Crocs, and chicks shaped like KFC buckets, then Busted Central is your playground. But you want to know the craziest part? Those girls actually seem more desirable. All the other ones were just too fake, like walking through a cyberpunk game with a bunch of pork bots. All plastic, no soul. At least on Busted Central, what you saw is what you got. Yeah, it was a plane crash, but I'm from New York, so I'm into that sort of thing. Now, before I talk about spreading her twin towers, let me tell you more about Ground Zero. The girls work behind windows surrounded by red lights, which to men might as well be a green light. Some dance, but most just nervously shake while taking hits from their vape. Get it together, Stacy. Their office is essentially a walk-in closet with just enough space for a bed, bathroom, and her to kneel. Most were located on the ground floor, but every once in a while you see one on the second. Like, damn, you're really making me work for it. Strangest part is they all had apartments above them. Like, could you imagine living there? All you're hearing is squeaky furniture and crying. Yeah, it's nice to have eye candy outside your window, but not when she's always mouthing, "Help me." But the real spectacle wasn't the workers, no. It was the animals looking in. The guy staring like he just gained an extra chromosome. The couple wondering if this will save their relationship. The bachelor party cheering for their bro. Woo, get it? Oh. The group of guys nervously laughing, waiting for one to go first so the others don't look so pathetic. You had guys leaving happy, sad, muttering, "It's not small, it's fucking average if anything." And finally, you had me, standing at the edge of a life-altering decision, wondering if I should turn back to safety or plunge into the unknown. And it was at that moment I realized the only thing scarier than the leap is the regret of never jumping at all. Plus, did you think I was going to leave without doing research? Boys, what did you think I came here for? So the first thing that happens is with the door open, you negotiate a deal. Money, time, how many spanks you get, everything you can think of. Then you pay by either cash or card, which made me wonder, could this be a business expense? You're telling me therapy is a write-off, but not blowies? Which do you think is going to make me feel better? Then after payment, she closes the curtain and you go to the bathroom to wash up. Bathroom had what you'd expect: toothbrush to wash your mouth, soap to clean your balls, mirror to see your shame. Then after washing up, she provides you a Jimmy and says, "I need to see you put this on," which I was totally cool with, but I had a hard time getting, hard. However, being a professional, she starts dancing to get me in the mood, which to most guys would be sexy, but I found hilarious. Watching someone dance with no music is objectively silly. Now with the pressure building, I'm trying to stay focused, but my hamster brain keeps getting distracted. I'm like, is it a smoke detector or camera? When's the last time she washed her sheets? Is that a panic button all the way on the other side of the room? I mean, I'm not a monster, but there is no way she would reach that. Then she starts rubbing my shoulders and my battery begins to fill. Soon after, we did the dirty, and all I have to say about that is, not my best performance. Fellas, you know how it is. Sometimes you face a boss you're not expecting and they beat you down. I didn't know you'd be this powerful. So I know what you're all thinking, and probably the reason you clicked on this video: how much did it cost? Well, again, there are a lot of variables. The service, duration, your ethnicity can all impact the cost. But just to give you a baseline, this lovely lady charged me 600 euros, or about $650. Was it worth it? Yes, of course it was. Because great stories are forever, and chlamydia is only temporary. Red light district is pretty easy to spot, as there are red lights everywhere. Every entrance, every exit, and if you're lucky, every entrance again. Why finger cross a Gucci bag will get me into the back door when I can just open it myself? Do you think they have a no crackhead policy? Most work across from each other. Be like, damn, Stacy's about to have a rough go. My knees were weak, arms heavy, fighting off my throbbing spaghetti. Imagine if I just took a dump and left. I got what I paid for. What's it like to be with someone who isn't into you? Well, I already have a dog who doesn't like to be pet, so I'm already used to touching someone who keeps resisting. The Netherlands is just too vanilla, you know? They don't have homeless people, school shootings, or religious fundamentalists running their government. Basically what I'm saying is you go to the Netherlands if you want to have sex, but you go to America if you want to get fucked. What is the most offensive username? Is it nut in my ear hole? 15 is old enough? Adolf A-OK? This is a question I've been thinking about for over 20 years. It all started while playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. In Melee, you only have 4 characters in your name, so your options are quite limited. And at the time, the names I came up with were what you'd expect from a 12-year-old. Gems such as AIDS, MILF, cum. But my buddy John came up with the best username, which was Jews? Question mark? What made the name even better was we all used to go to a tournament at a local card shop. The venue had this huge projector in the middle of it that we used to play our matches on. And of course, John decides to use the Jews tag. Not even a minute into his match, the TO comes over and tells him to change it. In which my buddy John replies, "What are you, anti-Semitic?" So that's how it began, but as I got older, I got wiser and more creative. I knew eventually I'd get an Xbox, and when I did, I'd be ready. Thus began my journey to craft the perfect username. And I came up with a bunch of bangers like Jesus is in white, cocaine for kids, 2 pumps away, fetus deletus, turtle with downs, frothy semen beard, shake da baby, after school date rape, mayo my starfish, abort me, beaten by cops, no means yes, and Hitler's favorite Jew. Now I would have been okay with any of these, but none of them really spoke to me. It was like something was missing. And then it came to me, the most offensive username, which was Bible Camp Victim. Yeah, it's the perfect combination of offensive, funny, sad, thought-provoking. It was beautiful. When I finally got my Xbox, I loaded up Halo, entered my name, and let the chaos begin. I can't tell you how many times I'd hear chat say,
"Bro, I just killed what the Bible Camp Victim?"
In which I'd reply, like I haven't been through enough. It was perfect. Now, some of you may think the story ends here, but needless to say, this got me into a little bit of trouble. You see, I got a new phone, and it asked me to set up a Gmail account. I wasn't planning on using Gmail since I already had a Yahoo account, so I just signed up with the name Bible Camp Victim. I didn't think much of it, and every once in a while I'd use it to sign up for things that would just send me spam. Fast forward a year later, and I'm at my insurance company, Allstate. They had a new device that goes into your car and monitors how well you drive. And for the first year using it, you get a 10% off discount on your policy. Now, I didn't want people tracking my driving, but I was also poor. So I said, yeah, I'll sign up for it. My Allstate agent says,
Great, we'll have you set up in no time. I just need the email associated with your account.
So I give him my regular email, doesn't work. He says,
That doesn't appear to be working. Are you sure this is the email associated with your account?
I'm like, yeah, that's my only... Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I think you see where the story's going. I obviously don't want to tell him what it is, so I say, you know what, I'll just sign up for this at my house. He says,
No, I'm sorry, you have to do this in the office. It'll be real quick. Just give me your email.
Panicking, knowing I have no choice, I think, I'll just spell it a few letters at a time. That way he won't know what it is. So I'm like, okay, it's a B-I-B, L-E-C-A, M-P-V-I-C, T-I-M. He types it in, takes his hand off the keyboard, pauses, and says,
So it's Bible Camp Victim.
And I said, at Gmail.com. Pretty embarrassing, but it gets worse. The email works, but apparently they need further authorization. So my agent has to call someone else in corporate to make it go through. He puts the phone on speaker and the corporate person says,
"Hey, am I speaking to Steven?"
I'm like, yes. They're like,
"Great, we'll have you set up in no time. Brian,
my agent,
you mind telling me the email?"
So he just comes right out and says, BibleCampVictim@gmail.com.
Person on corporate pauses and says,
I think I misunderstood you. What was the name?
Again, he says,
BibleCampVictim@gmail.com.
Corporate person pauses again and says,
"Is this a prank?"
Brian is like,
No, that's actually his email.
Corporate person asked me,
"Steven, is your email in fact Bible Camp Victim?"
And I said, at Gmail.com. Moral of the story is, if you're going to change your username to something offensive, make sure to use it at Allstate. They'll have you added there in no time, and their look of disgust will be priceless. So I'm in college and I had never been to a strip club before. Gotta be honest, it's not really my scene. I don't understand the point of paying to blue balls yourself. Besides, you're not getting the cream of the crop at your local town strip bar. The only 10 you'll see is stuck between Diamond's C-section scar. Anyway, so I'm out drinking with a couple of friends and we didn't have any house parties to go to. So one of my friends says, Bro, let's go to the strip club. I'm like, nah, let's just hit up another bar. But my buddy is insistent. He's like, come on, dude, it'll be fun. I'll pay for you to get a lap dance. So I explained I had never been to a strip club before, nor had the desire to. Well, as soon as I said that, all of my friends were like, dude, we gotta go to the Novelty Lounge. Now, normally I would say no, but I had just enough alcohol in me to be like, alright. So we get to the club, and as soon as we walk through the door, my first thought was, it is way too bright in here. Whenever I see strip clubs in movies, there's black lights or at least mood lighting, but this place had bright fluorescent lights. I'm like, I thought you said this was a strip club, not Bed Bath & Beyond. Now, there was only one dancer working that evening, and to be honest, she was pretty tough to look at. If she had a celebrity look-alike, it'd be Amy Winehouse after the overdose. If I had to describe her in one word, it would be defeated. She was in her early 20s and somehow already developed a hunch. She was literally built to pick up dollar bills off the ground, but sadly, no one was throwing any. You see, there were only about 8 people in the bar total, and not one of them was paying attention to her. Probably because she looked less like a stripper and more like a Make-A-Wish kid. Anyway, she's twerking in front of a giant mirror covered in fingerprints and, I'm assuming, hepatitis. There's no speaker system in the place, and the only thing playing music is a boombox next to the stage. At one point, the song gets stuck, and she has to fix it it herself. Luckily, like I mentioned earlier, she is permanently bent over, so it didn't take her long. Anyway, I begin to giggle at all the cringeness when a middle-aged man walks in, sits down, and throws a $1 bill at the lady. I'm doing that whisper yelling where I'm like, bro, is that a $1 bill he threw on the stage? I'm rocking, trying to contain myself when I see the man do a little come here motion. The girl ignores it at first, but the man again gives a little come here motion. The lady, who is already bent over, bends down further, and the man says, "You remind me of my daughter." Then throws another $1 bill at the lady. Now I'm laughing even harder, and my friends are like, "Bro, quiet down, you're gonna get kicked out." I'm like, this guy just expressed his incest fantasy to a stranger in public. My friends are like, "Seriously, you need to shut up." Then the bouncer, a large black man, comes over saying, "You need to leave." I'm like, if anyone should be kicked out, it's Captain Taboo over here. That's when he grabbed my arm and reality set in. He drags me to the door, tosses me out, but luckily 3 guys were walking in at the time and they essentially catch me. One guy just yells, "Dude!" And I'm like, my B, and I just hustle away, hysterically laughing. So you may think the story ends there, but a week later I'm sitting down getting my oil change when a man walks in that looks oddly familiar. You ever look at someone being like, I know this person. The hell do I know this person from? That's when it hit me. It's the incest guy from the strip club. And now this is a little f***ed up, but his paperwork was on the table, so I glanced over to see his name. Then on a hunch, I plugged his name into the sex offenders registry list, and it turns out he's a level 2 sex offender. Not only that, but he has a wedding band on his finger that definitely wasn't there when he was in the strip club. I'm like, oh shit, maybe this guy wasn't looking for a lap dance. Maybe, just maybe, he was looking for his next victim. So that is my one and only time in the strip club. My friends and I had plans to go back a few years later to see if the hunchback was still working, but we found out through Facebook she had a new job. Care to take a guess what it is? Well, I'm sorry, you were wrong. It's cat therapist. Yeah, apparently that's a real thing, which does make sense because she did like showing off her you know what you want to do. Oh, you want to push that subscribe button. Oh, push the button. Push the button.